Apparently I'm live. Happy days. My name is Jem and I'm here with Jessie James Beads, going live on YouTube and Facebook at the same time, apparently. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. If you can see and hear me, give me a shout. It's always reassuring to know that you are there and that all is going well technologically, because technology, not my finest thing, to be perfectly honest. Have you seen the unboxing of this month's Magical Mystery Bead Box? Stay Golden. What a fiesta of beautiful late summer, early autumn colours. I've just unhidden the things. I've got to hide them again. Katney's in. Hello, darling. Anne is in from sunny California. I've got sunshine today. I mean, it's not super warm, but it's not super cold. And that's a win. I'm so happy that you can see and hear me. That is always reassuring. Katney, how are you today? Whereabouts are you watching from today? And Anne, I know that you're in sunny California. Is it swimming weather today, my love? Is it beautiful in California? One day I'm going to make it and I'm going to go along the highway in my friend's Carmen gear. That sounds like a beautiful day out. Do you like cars? Is it just me? I don't know. I'll tell you something that we all love though, and that's beads. Beads aplenty. Have you had a look at the unboxing video? Because I'm not going to show you absolutely everything again, but it is there on YouTube, ready for you to take a peek if you want to see what is inside the August 2024 Magical Mystery Bead Box. Let me check those comments. Katney's in Oregon. It should be 75 degrees today. Good morning from Alaska, which is where Leanne is. Katney says you can take the 101 from California right up to Oregon. I'm in. I love to drive. Got to learn how to drive on the right-hand side of the road, though. As long as I've got a stick shift, it'll be fine. Jackie's in from Southampton. Hello, darling. Anne has confirmed it is indeed a beautiful day in California. I'm glad to hear it. Shall we have a look at what I'm going to be using from this month's Magical Mystery Bead Box? Let's just give that camera a little switcheroo. Hopefully this is all set up and working. Hurrah! So stay golden for August 2024. Good morning from Chicago in Illinois, says Natalie. Cynthia says, hi, Jem from Houston. And Lola is in from the Philippines. Hello, my darling. How are you all today? It's so wonderful to have your company. I'm very, very grateful that you've chosen to make a moment to hang out with me and our beautiful friends at Jessie James Beads. So if you haven't seen the unboxing video as yet, I'm going to be using some of the goodies from this beautiful box. One of the things that attracted me, and I did a live unboxing, there was no preamble, there was no opportunity to look before. I opened the box on camera for you and it was beautiful. One of the things that really caught my eye was this stunning, stunning chain. Don't look, you can't see those yet. Here we go. So we have got strands, bead mix, bead mix, bead mix, bead mix. Amazing clasps, the most gorgeous head pins, a pendant, which I think was Pray Night, and this Saturday Night Fever chain. Don't worry, I won't sing, and I definitely won't dance. New friend here, says Lola. Welcome, my darling. Sandy's in from Northern California. Roxanne's in from Nebraska. Welcome, friends, welcome. So this is something that I am going to be working with today. Never seen a chain like this before. And as ever, I'm not going to be using it like a normal person. We're going to be taking it apart. Sandy says Jem, not Jen. It's absolutely fine. Autocorrect doesn't like my name. Do you want to see the projects? No, not yet. I'll show you a little bit more about what we're going to be using. Now, in this month's box, we have this absolutely exquisite earring finding. And it's not very often that I get to work with earrings that have posts rather than hooks. So I couldn't not take the opportunity. So we will be making an earring today. And it's going to be a gloriously long drop earring. However, As with all of my jewellery, completely customizable. Chain looks good, looks silver on my screen. My chain is a beautiful gold. I've got sunshine here today, my darling, so it's quite bright in the studio. Let me just see if I can draw those blinds a little bit. I don't think it's going to help show you how beautiful and golden that chain is, but I promise you it is lustrous and smooth and silky and gorgeous. Greetings from Janine in Tennessee. Good day to you, my friend. I hope that you are indeed well and the weather is kind. We're also going to be using one of these. Now, I don't know what the composition is, but it feels like it has a really good thick copper coating to it, and I adore this texture. With a lot of experience with a hammer, you can absolutely learn to texture metal yourself. But when somebody else does it for you, makes it into a bead and puts a whacking great drill hole through it, why wouldn't you want to use it? I'm also going to be using a couple of these little disc spacers or tires. I don't know how you prefer to know them. Don't know how you refer to them. I'm going to be using one of the most magnificent head pins. I love these. We had these in a box, the wildflower box, a little while ago. Not exactly the same, but similar. And I begged Sarah to bring us some more, and she has. So happy days. I'm also going to be using one of these very, very pretty transfer beads. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm no botanist, so I don't know what the flowers are, but they're really lovely. Very pretty indeed. Becky's in. Good morning to you also, my love. Where are you watching from today? I have added from my stash an oversized jump ring. Just the one, mind. Everything else is out of the box. I'm going to show you how to disassemble the chain in a moment. I've also added in a beautiful, feisty, coated, oval faceted bead. Love working with things like this because you get so much luster. The most cheerful floral charm as well. So you can probably work out what comes from where with those names. I'm just going to pop that back up into the corner. Hopefully I won't knock it flying, but you know what it's like with me. Becky's in Austin in Texas. Hello, my lovely. How's the weather? Is it super hot? Or is it a little bit more normal now? Normal for Austin and Texas anyway, which I imagine is a lot warmer than it is here. So what's inside? You have Stay Golden bead strand, a Merry Mushroom stone bead strand, Bell Bottom Boogie bead mix, which I promise you is really quite tricky to say. Crazy Daisy bead mix, Harvest Gold bead mix, the one that I'm not saying bead mix with avocado flavors, which we're using just here. Do the Hustle clasp set, Groovy Blooms flower head pins, Can You Dig It pendant, and Saturday Night Fever chain. Well, this is magnificent. Let's have a look at the jewellery. Let's just pop this out of the way for now. See if I can knock that on the floor as well. Here we are. So we're going to make 2 items of jewellery today. Technically 4, I suppose, if you're going to make both earrings. Good morning, everyone, says Jessie James Beads. Jessie James Beads has entered the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is a semi-spinning pendant. You can turn that little loop up the other way if you want to, and then it's completely mobile. I just quite like it wiggling around a little bit because I couldn't resist working with these most magnificent copper textured. I don't want to call it a bead because it's far too impressive for that. Becky says we got a cold front, so our highs are down to 32.7. Yeah, that's still really warm. Thank you for putting it into centigrade for me. We're also going to be making this earring. So as with my jewellery, as often as it's possible to do so, I will make it in a way that means you can completely change it around to your own tastes and requirements. I love long dramatic earrings. I really, really do. However, if you don't want it to be quite this dramatic, you can completely forego the beads and just use that flower head pin to create a little connector for your charm, and then you could use a significantly shorter piece of chain. So as ever, there are choices. What would you like to make first? Hi guys, we've only got a few of the August Magical Mystery Bead Boxes left. Get yours before they are gone, and there is a link for you if you don't have one already. Amanda is in from Washington State. How are you, dearest? I hope that you are well. Cynthia is being absolutely delightful and saying hello. There we go. Okay, so what do you want to make first? Earrings or a pendant, earrings or a pendant. Bearing in mind, of course, you can make this just a little bit shorter if you wish to. Just while you're deciding which one you want to see first, I'm going to turn this other lamp down because it's so sunny. We don't need all of the light in the world, do we? Let's show you how to take this chain apart. Now, all you really need are chain nose pliers. So we'll do the pendant first. Becky got in there first, but I am going to show you, because I've got the chain here right now, how to take the chain apart. So let's say that we wanted a piece that was 4 infinity loops long. We'll count those out of the way. And then what we're going to do is open up the jump ring between your 4th infinity link and the rest of the chain. So you should really be doing that with 2 pairs of pliers, but there we go, I've done it that way. And before you take your pliers off that jump ring, hello Cindy, how are you, darling? Wow, we had lots of votes for the pendant. I'm going to show you how to make this chain shorter, and then we will make the pendant, then we'll make the earring. So before you go anywhere else, we've taken that little jump ring that forms part of the chain off. What we're going to do is very gently open up one side of the infinity loop, just softly, as if you were opening a jump ring. Pull that up ever such a little bit. You see, it's only a small amount. And then what we're going to do is to take that out. Pop that back down. You can use that again. Then what we're going to do is re-sight that jump ring that forms part of the chain into that upper loop. Let's turn that over like so. So that's how you can shorten the chain. And you could obviously do the same at the other end. So let's pop that out of the way for now. And I just want to show you also that you can take it all apart if you want to. You've got all of these different sections that are all very, very useful. Now, these little double loops are great for adding a little bit of length and drama to your earrings. So if you do take the chain apart and you end up with some of those, don't discard them. The same can be said for these lovely O-ring links. And of course, you can never have enough heavy gold colour jump rings. Let's get that out of the way and we'll work on making the pendant first and foremost. So to create this pendant, I'm using 18 gauge round wire. Is that still too bright? Let me just turn that down a tiny bit. Never let it be said that it's too sunny. I love a bit of sun. Here we go. So this is around about 11 or so inches that I'm working with right now. If you have slightly more or slightly less, that's absolutely fine. We'll make it work. And it's 18 gauge round wire. So I'm working with a copper colour because not only do I love teaming copper and gold together, but it shows up really nicely on the camera. Now, the first thing we need to do is to make sure that that copper wire is really nice and smooth and soft and ready to work for you. So you may or may not have even seen how different that looks, but I promise you it makes all the difference in the world. So don't forget that part. So what we are going to do is to first of all slide on our beautifully textured copper coin. Let's call it a copper coin. That makes most sense in the world, doesn't it? And what I'm going to do is to start just imagining a couple of inches from the top end of that wire. I'm going to turn the wire forwards. Let me grab my bail makers, which I accidentally tied it up, and I'm going to make a little hanging bail up at the top. Now, if it's easier for you to take that coin back off, then please feel free to do so. Let's warm that wire through. Cindy says, hello, Gem, and everyone else. Welcome, my lovely. Whereabouts are you, Cindy? Warm that through as ever, and I'm going to use number 4 on my bail makers. You can use whatever size makes you happy, drawing that all the way around just to create a little wrapped loop up at the top. So if you've never made a wrapped loop before, take it slowly. What we're going to do is make sure that that sits centrally on that core of wire. And then I'm just going to take that around a couple of times up at the top. Doesn't need to be lots and lots of times because we'll be adding over the top with that little spiral later on. And then I'm just going to tighten that up. Now to do that, I'm going to put one side of my pliers inside the circular form and the other at the bottom of that little spring spiral. And that just neatens that coil so it's a little bit tighter. Ah, Miami. I have not been to Miami in a very long time. 1989, 1990, I think, the last time I was in Miami. And then we're just going to tidy the tail away on the cut end of wire just like so. Give that a little bit of a smush, make it sit nice and flat. So one side is always going to look slightly neater than the other. From this direction, you can see the cut end. So this is going to be the front of my pendant. Let's add that coin into position. So what we're going to do is to make sure we're looking at the front, and you can turn right or left at the bottom, dependent on which side you'd like your beads to be sitting. And I'm going to allow just the tiniest amount of space down at the bottom. So if I hold at the very tip of those pliers and then push away to the side, just making sure that that is in the same orientation as that bail. Sometimes it gets a little bit slippery. You can give it a quick wiggle if it's gone slightly awry. So the next thing we're going to do is to form a nice half circular form. The easiest way that you can do this is to push that up inside your coin and use the coin itself just to create that form and shape. And what should happen is it should give you a little bit of flexibility to pop back out again. However, you can also do this simply by using the heat of your body and the form of your fingers or thumbs. So if I warm that wire through again, I love working with wire. I genuinely do, because you can do almost anything with it. So what I'm going to do now is super warm that wire through, which if it's like Texas and it's 32.7 degrees centigrade, it's quite easy to do. And what I'm going to do is show you that wire wants to work for you and that you shouldn't be afraid of giving it a try. So can you see how I'm not even putting my thumb inside and it's creating that beautiful arc shape? Absolutely gorgeous. Love working with wire. We're going to add in another section of wire now. So I have some 24 gauge copper wire. Doesn't really matter if it's soft or medium at this stage. It's all going to end up doing the same kind of thing. And what we're going to do is to wrap 3 or 4 times just down at the bottom of the pendant here with one end. This is probably again about 11 inches of wire. It's a scrap that I was working with earlier. And to make my life easier, I'm going to start wrapping with the cut end going towards the pendant, like so, just holding that in position and getting that as neat and tidy as possible. Now I'm doing this wrapping far away from where it's going to end up. And that's because it's much easier and much less destructive. What I do want you to be aware of, though, is that sticky uppy end. If you are working with scraps, the sticky uppy end can be quite pointy and can go into your skin. So do mind out for that. Just take your time, get that nice and smooth and flat down, tighten that coil up, and then we're going to push that all the way down to the bottom of the pendant, down to that 6 o'clock position. It will scoot there eventually. It's just going to take its sweet old time and get hooked on stuff. Push that all the way down so it sits near the bottom. There we go. So I chose to work with the avocado beads for this one. Anita is in from Northern California. Is that wine country? I don't know exactly where wine country is, but that sounds like somewhere I'd like to go. So my finer wire's coming off the top of the outside little arc shape of my pendant. So I'm going to add in my first bead and allow that to slip down to the bottom. So I'm going to push that against the outside of the wire. It's not underneath, it's not over the top, it's on the outside, furthest away from that coin bead. So what we're going to do here is push the bead against the wire, draw the tail underneath, and then slide it up between the coin and the wire that encircles it around the outside. So there's one wrap. When you get that first wrap seated, it's so much easier to do everything else. And if you want to, you can just draw that ever so slightly up and away from the pendant. Gives you a little bit more room. And then you'll find it easier to find access points for those wraps to go. So what I would say is you can go 3 or 4 wraps around that little wire that goes around the outside, as many as makes you happy, but try to keep it the same number all the way around. So what you would need to do to complete the pendant is keep adding on as many or as few beads as you want to stack in there. Roberta is in from the North Georgia mountains. Wow, that sounds wonderful. How's the weather for you today, my lovely? Aisha's in. Hello and welcome to you. So I've added in a second bead and I've elected to go for 3 wraps between each bead. You can spread them out a little bit if you want to. I just like how they look together with that beautiful metallic overlay on those coppery beads in the middle, and then you've got this avocado mix on the outside. So I'm going to do another 3 wraps just here, being careful not to pull too strongly away or you will change that shape, that arc that you worked hard to get working for you. So every time you've done those 3 little wraps, tidy them up. Zandra's in from Northern Kentucky. Anita's about an hour from wine country. Sounds well worth a visit come the weekend. Not that I'm encouraging anybody to have a drink at all. They do make non-alcoholic beverages. So let's add in another bead. And I'm just going to chat for a little bit whilst I add these on. But the technique is exactly the same as you move around that arc of wire. And you can nestle them up really close together, or you can pull them so they're a little further apart. Roberta says it's going to be a hot one today. 93 degrees with a real feel close to 100. Wow. That's like literally hotter than my body, which is quite warm. Tidy those wraps up every time you go for 3. And if I do another 2 beads, that should give us a nice open feel to this pendant, ever so slightly to the other one, which is where they're a little bit closer together. So I think we'll do another 2, and then I can finish the pendant with you live rather than saying, hey, imagine we did a thing. We can actually do the thing together. So bring the bead down against that wire, against the outside of the heavier wire. Draw the tail up in between. And what we're looking for is enough pressure to keep that bead stationary, but not so much that we start smashing beads. We are not going to hulk out. I know those beads are green, but there's no need. Draw that through for one final time on this little section. Cover your bead with your nail if you're worried about catching it with the tips of your pliers. And we're just going to tighten that wrap up so it sits neatly. Sandy says, yes, Northern California is wine country. So tell me, guys, do you have ever imbibe in a white Zinfandel or a white Grenache from California? Those are definitely my favourite Californian wines. Not a wine buff, I'm afraid. We'll add one last bead for this pendant. Allow it to slide down so that it sits against the outside of that heavier wire. Draw the tail around. Now, if you wanted to, you could keep wrapping until you have filled this section of wire between the bead and the neck section, or you can just go for 3 or 4, however many you did when you started off. I'm just going to go for 4, but you do have options. So let me give that a quick trim, and it's just a little bit past the top of that wire so that I can rotate that wire around and get it to sit smoothly and flat, making sure that I squish up that little section of wraps, making it nice and neat and tidy. So once we have our beads into position, and you can see I've only used 5 on this one. I can't even see 8 how many I used on that one. Lovely to visit for picnic, says Anita. That sounds absolutely wonderful. So we're going to make sure that we're happy with the shape and feel of our pendant before we pinch super firmly with the non-dominant hand. You might like to put just a little bit more warmth into that wire, and never underestimate how much that will help you. A little bit more warmth, and then wrap that tail all the way around 1.5 times. And that's basically your pendant done. Let's close that wrap up, make it a little bit neater. Now, if you want your pendant to continue to spin, take the wire to the rear of the design, cut away, and just nip down with the tips of your pliers to make sure that that sits neatly. I like the idea of a pendant that will spin, but not quite as much. So I'm going to give you both options. I'm going to trim away to about 1.25 inches. Useful length of wire, don't discard it. Hold on to it for spirals and the such. And then we're going to find our round nose pliers, which, oh, look at me go. I tidied them up earlier as well. So let's start by rotating near the end of that wire, near the tip of those pliers, until you get a not quite closed round form, and then push that into the non-dominant hand to create a spiral. And again, if you wanted this pendant to be a spinner or a fidget pendant, then just take the wire to the rear of the design and trim it away. Or another thing that you could do, actually, if I wanted to stop my pendant from spinning, as I have done with this one, there's still movement, but it's not spinning. Bring that coil downwards. If you really want a coil, but you don't want your pendant to spin, you can push it upwards instead. So if I show you that from the side, just give that a little bit of a squish. I just want to tighten that up slightly so that I know it will be safe in wear. And there you have two variations of that pendant with these absolutely stunning textured copper beads. One is a spinner and one is not. He's a wiggler, I think, actually. A little bit of wigglage there. Okay, so let's look at those earrings then. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you prefer to have a slightly shorter drop on your earrings, then you can forego any beads hanging down from that beautiful floral head pin. We'll just hang your charm on instead. But I'm going to add beads because I'm going to make the pair to this one. Let's just pop that back on the dish so that it sits nicely and doesn't roll around all over the place. I mean, it still might anyway. Do you remember that wire that we talked about earlier? Perfect length for making this dropper down at the bottom of the chain, which we're adding on to the earrings. So I have got that section of chain that I took apart earlier, and I'm adding in one jump ring from my stash. However, if you take your chain apart, you will find there are other jump rings available to use, especially if you're planning on using these as little earring extenders and the such. So let's open this one up. I'm just going to tighten it slightly across because I saw that there was a bit of a gap. Now, if I close that, that gap's going a little bit closer now. There we go. Jump rings are not my speciality, I'm afraid. I tend to work with wire and I'd rather make a rosary link if I'm completely honest. So what we will do then is just open that up and pop it to one side because I think it'll be easier to show you the head pin side of the earring first. Sandy says it's beautiful. Thank you ever so much, my love. That's jolly kind of you. So on the longer side of this amazing earring finding, it's really a treasure to find interesting earring findings that are posts rather than hooks. So what we're going to do is to use the longer side of our earring finding to pop the head pin through. Now, head pins are bits of wire with a head on them. So what I'm going to do is warm that through to begin with, exactly as I would any other wire I was working with. I'm going to hold that flat in position and draw the tail down. And I'm going to pull it forwards towards the flower itself. And then I shall use my pliers to just create a little bit of a bend so that this is going to hang perfectly balanced beneath that flower head. And we went for a disc bead. We went for a oval coated faceted bead. And then another disc bead. I almost made very wrong earrings then. And then what we're going to do is to create a simple open and closable loop down at the bottom of this earring. Natalie says, gorgeous both versions of the pendant. Thank you ever so much, darling. So let's hold across that wire as we're looking at the front of the earring and just draw that forwards so that it comes in the same direction as the flower itself. And then we need to make a loop. And I can't remember what size loop I used, so I'm just going to use number 1 on my bail makers. Rotate that all the way around, bring the tail over, and then we'll look at it from the side. So what we're looking to do is to create a rounded form and then trim at the point that that meets the change in angle. Now, if that goes slightly wrong for you, you do have a moment just to, let's grab those bail makers back in and roll that around so that it closes up properly. There we go. So you can usually just roll that around and then give it a quick squish across to make it nice and strong. Make sure that we're on the front of the design. Yes, we are. That's very happy making. And then we're going to open that up and pop in our flower charm. Here we are. Flower charm in and close that simple loop up. So a simple loop is nothing more than a jump ring that's attached to a piece of wire. So that's half of our earring made already. Now we are going to add on a little bit extra to the bottom of this glamorous long chain drop. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trim away the very end like so, to make sure that that's a flush cut. And then I'm going to try and replicate this open spiral. When I'm making earrings, I generally make them side by side so that I can make sure that everything is as symmetrical as possible. Let's just borrow this for a hot second. So I'm going to try and recreate that spiral. Dun, 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 round it goes. In terms of size and the number of times the wire rotates around, that looks reasonable. And what I'm going to do is to hold across that wire, push it away and up. Give that a quick warm through. How many head pins come in the kit? I don't know. I can count for you at the end of the live, darling. There's more than 2, I know that much. So let's add on our beautiful floral bead now. I'm sure there's a way up with these, but my eyes do not help me with that kind of information. So what we're going to do is a wrapped loop into the bottom of this section just here. So my loop is going to be sideways so that it sits in the same orientation as that spiral. Let me just bring that up a little bit. Take that over to one side, grab those round nose pliers, draw the tail all the way around and just hold on for a second. Does it look similar enough to the other one? Let's make that a little bit higher up on the board. I think it might be just a little bit further up. So what I would do to redress that is just shrink down the size of my spiral slightly, or I would start again. But like I said, when I'm making earrings, I do tend to make them side by side so that they can be as symmetrical as possible. Let's just take that a little bit closer to the bead. And then whiz that around, and we've made that a little bit shorter. Happy days. So what we're going to do is to slide that through the O-ring shaped loop on a piece of our chain, which we took apart earlier. Close that back up, hold across that round form, and then bring the tail around. Take that to the rear side before trimming away. Let's give that a little bit of a snicked, like so. And then make sure that that sits flush down against the core wire. Let's have a look and see if these are reasonably symmetrical. Well, that works for me. Obviously, because the beads are round, they want to roll around a little bit. So let's have a look. Do I have the same number of links? Yes. Have I finished my chain with an O-ring at the bottom? Yes. Now I just need to connect this up at the top. So we've already opened this jump ring. Pop it through one of the sides of the earring finding. Finding is just another word for thingy that you use in jewellery making, like clasps, crimps, and so on and so forth. So that's sitting all into position. And then if you were a professional, you'd use 2 pairs of pliers to close up your jump ring. There's too much information on the board if I do that. So there we go. Let's have a look at these questions. 6 head pins, 8 head pins, 1 of one kind and 3 of 2 others. I could be wrong though. Love all of your tips and tricks with working with wire. Learn lots from you on wire working. Thanks as always, beautiful jewellery. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. I liked that a couple of versions had 3, so you could maybe do a pendant and earrings that would match. That is wonderful. Anne says, thanks. No need to count as long as there is more than 2. There's definitely more than 2. So what's your favourite? Do you like the earrings? Would you have them this long, or would you cut them down a little bit? Because any amount of that chain is going to be absolutely fabulous. I kind of like long dangly earrings. So you can take it apart. And as I mentioned to you earlier, you end up, if you are going to discombobulate the chain, I'm sure that's not the right word, but I happen to love saying it, then you are going to end up with these super heavyweight jump rings, infinities that are open and closable, so you can use them to extend earrings. And you've also got these gorgeous O-rings as well. Did I mention those already? I can't really remember. So you can forego or change up the beads. You could go for a much tinier charm. You don't have to have any of these beads with dangles on the end. You could just have a section of chain. It's a heavy chain, and the way that it hangs is absolutely stunning just by itself On simple earrings, that's going to be beautiful. Absolutely a stunneroo. I like dangles, but not that long. I get you. I do wear very long earrings. When you've got your hair up, if you've got longer hair, it can look absolutely stunning. So there you are. You've got two variations of a pendant to work with, a spinner, and then you've got a wiggler. You can work with different numbers of beads on the pendant as well. So that's got 8 and that's got 5, completely different looks. Very, very clustered, lots of sparkle, a little bit more demure maybe, I don't know, you tell me. And there's so much chain left over still to play with. Anne says, beautiful tutorial. Loving the pendant, says Aisha. Becky says, the earring fundings in this box are so fun and unique. They really are. I knew the second I opened the box that I would have to do it. Natalie says, if making for myself, a little shorter. If making for my sister, the length you just made. Let's see if the camera is still working on this one. Yes, still works. Happy days. It's still me. Let's see. I haven't put earring posts through my ears in such a long time, but that's quite a long drop, but not perhaps as long as you might think, seeing them in isolation. I've got a really short neck. Let's just see. So it doesn't quite graze the shoulders as some of my earrings do. It's absolutely fabulous to have your company today here at Jessie James Beads. My name is Jem, and this is the August 2024 Magical Mystery Bead Box, which is called Stay Golden, which, I mean, it really, really is a golden box. I miss seeing the chain. We'll have to rewatch. Yes, we learn how to take the chain apart slightly earlier on in the video. Jem, you always make sure different items. I do try diamonds and things. I do try to be a little bit off the wall. I'm learning to wear long, says Janine. Absolutely. Do it. Do it. You know what? I am not... let's go with the model shape. However, I love to express myself through jewellery. If you haven't checked out our new Iris Apfel collection yet, now there was somebody who loved to express themselves through clothes, interior design, through jewellery, and through just the way she lived her life. So that is something that I would just love for everybody to enjoy. The ability and the confidence to just go your way. Excellent video as always, says Jem. Amanda says, watching your tutorials brightens my day. Sandy says, beautiful. Natalie says, they look fabulous on you. Thanks, darling. That's very kind of you. I love doing a little head waggle when I've got dangles on. I totally agree. Anita says, thank you. Jessie James says, thank you, Miss Jem. Thanks for a fabulous tutorial. Love it. Love your tutorials. Those iris items you made are beautiful. Thank you, my darlings. I am now going to love you and leave you. The video is already on YouTube. It will be on Facebook. If you go to the videos tab on the Jessie James Beads Facebook page, you will find it. And at some point, it might make its way to the blog. Lovely to have your company. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye, guys.